Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome here in the room and in the digital space, everywhere in the world. My name is Hayri Göcke, and I will be moderating this panel on open innovation ecosystems. I manage the CKI at AsiaBerlin, which is also one of the partners. But here today, I am very happy to have 4 guests with me, who I will introduce shortly. But before, we will talk about the technical setup. As most of you know, we work on Slido, and the hashtag for this is ABS20 Stage 3. And to test if this works, please all log on, and we will try to get to know our audience on a personal level with our first question: in which unusual ways have you participated in virtual meetings? So while you answer this question, I will proceed with introducing our panel and introducing the topic of the talk. Collaborations with startups have been widely discussed at ABS, and we all know that it's fruitful for large corporates and smaller startups to collaborate. But now we ask the question, is there a benefit in cooperation also in a trilateral way with science involved? And how does it look like in concrete examples? We have 2 concrete examples here with us today, one from Beijing, one here from Berlin. And I'm very happy to introduce our panelists. So we have virtually Claudia Eggert with us, Presidential Board of BAM, responsible for strategic research and coordination and international cooperation. She holds a biotech PhD. Then we have Qiao, Associate Professor at Tsinghua University in Electronics Engineering and Vice Director of the Joint Research Center for Automotive Robotics. Before we introduce the room, let's get back to the question and see how the poll ended up. Do we have any answers? We have a mixture between pajama while cooking and no one dares to tell the internet. Interesting. So let's try to continue with another question that might be of more interest. The question will be, what about your own background? What's your background? Are you working for a startup, a corporate, for science, or for a public institution? So meanwhile, I will introduce our 2 guests in the room. Jens Dietrich, yes, thank you very much, Jens, is in technology and innovation at Siemens Energy, and he's chairman of the Werner-von-Siemens Center for Industry and Science, and did his PhD, as I heard, in laser beam drilling. And then we have Robert Harms, co-founder of Fifth Industry, an IIoT startup, furthermore co-founder of Next Generation Works. Robert previously worked at Siemens as well in factory planning and did his PhD in production technology.
Hello.
Welcome. So, I hope to have more results from the audience. Let's see. Oh, I have to restart the tablet. That's fun.
It's a lazy audience.
So let's see. I have to vote myself to see what happens here. So we have a big corporate chunk here in the room. Interesting. Majority of corporates, but some startups and scientists are involved as well. Very interesting. So we will talk about needs and challenges. So where do we come from? What do we need in an innovating ecosystem or in innovation at all? And I would like to begin in the room with Jens. What is the need for corporates such as Siemens Energy when innovating?
Well, innovation, Hayri, is very important, especially in the rapid changing world like today. And let me emphasize this by asking a question of what we are taking care at Siemens Energy. Yeah? How can we meet the growing demand for electricity and fight climate change at the same time? And the answer is yes, it's possible, we can do it. And the key for that is innovation. So we need to accelerate innovation speed. That's really important. And I've already seen companies accelerating innovation, for example, by changing innovation processes or changing the setup for that. But in my opinion, the next big step to accelerate innovation and be faster is to work in ecosystems and to work together and contribute from each other and have benefits.
So Claudia, how is it from the science perspective?
I would agree that the time to... Are you still there?
Yes, we are.
Stand broke down, so we need to innovate, having better stands for mobiles. So sorry for the interruption. So I would totally agree with Jens, even from a science perspective, that time to market and speed are crucial with all the challenges I think global civilization is facing. When you ask me about science and its approach to innovation, I guess one important factor is a soft one, raising the entrepreneurial spirit in our academics, I think is still a challenge, especially when we look at the German academic scene. So if you talk to a scientist about innovation, I think the basic idea is in his mind is publication. So from a science perspective, you're working towards turning money into ideas, mostly public money. From an innovation perspective, we would like to see ideas turned into money and exploitation. And if you look at all the efforts, at least on the European and national, regional level, to speed up innovation, to enable innovation, we're always confronted with the so-called valley of death. And I think one solution and one approach, also from the perspective of science policy making, is to address this valley of death, not only from maybe another lack in venture capital as one of the drawbacks, but also to think about open innovation and co-creation, like we're talking or addressing these two wonderful examples today.
Thank you, Claudia. And Faye, would you mind building up on that? How is it at your university?
In my opinion, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. In my opinion, the challenge and the needs when innovating today, I think the innovation and the idea is very important. But for the technology transferring, choosing the right and suitable technology path for technology transferring is very important, especially at the beginning of the disruptive research. For example, as you all know, I'm from Tsinghua University in Beijing. I and my colleagues are encouraged to publish some papers and do some research work, some disruptive research work, to publish our work in Science and Nature. But I don't think this kind of work can be transferred to industry at the early stage of the technology. So, in my opinion, the idea and the innovation is very important, but we need to choose the right way, right technology path. Sometimes we need to even sacrifice some innovation to meet the industrial needs for the technology transfer. This is my opinion.
Thank you very much. And so, Robert, we have now heard from industry that they have a high need for innovation, from science that they feel there is a bridge to gap from ideas and papers to practice. How is it in startups? Do you feel you're ahead of that?
I wouldn't say we are ahead of that, but I like to connect to that, because the speed is really not the problem of the startups, and the entrepreneurial spirit is also not the problem of the startup. I'd rather connect to what Faye said. It is really understanding what do the users really need, what do the customers, what do the big corporates really need, and that is why the ecosystem is so important. We are fast, we can do all the experimenting, but we need to understand what does the customer, what does the user really require at the shop floor, for instance, or in the products. Yeah, that's what we need.
Thank you. Thank you for these different perspectives. So we heard about open innovation ecosystems. The term was coined. We used it as a name for this panel. But what actually is an open innovation ecosystem? Claudia, as a scientist, you might help us out with the definition of it.
Yeah, I was also heavily involved in research policy, so I'm confronted with working with the concept of open innovation, and I like to always refer to, I think that was the US scientist Chesbrough who invented or was often cited as the source for the open innovation concept. And I like to look at it as the opening up of the innovation processes of organizations who in the past have been caught up in their silos and now embrace external cooperations in a rather complex world. I think from a much more modern perspective, we're used to looking at co-creation, but the basic idea should be, at least in my opinion, that there should be a trust-based element in it. It should be inclusive as an open innovation concept. And I think what's really important also from the science perspective, that it allows this ecosystem working together on an eye level, on a par level. And from my experience, previous position, I was involved in a big international public-private partnership and involving pharmaceutical industries, so big push of corporates. And there was startups were involved, universities, public money mixed with private. And we were fighting a really hard fight to protect startups and the science players from IPR rules that were just very disadvantaged. And that's my personal experience when it comes to open innovation. In this fight, I would say or it was a fight of legal experts, so it wasn't a real fight. But the term open innovation was used as an argument to shape framework conditions that were not on eye level. So I think when we talk about open innovation, this framework allowing eye level cooperations is very important.
Thank you. I think we will get back to the eye level later on in our discussion. For now, Faye, would you have anything to add on this? What you would define as an open innovation ecosystem?
Yeah. I have some sharings. As well, know the application scenarios and requirements of products are mostly from the industrial parts, but the novel technologies are mostly from the academic parts. But in my experience, I think the application scenarios and requirements are both important for academics and industries. In an open innovation ecosystems, the partners from science and industrial should combine the features of products and novel technologies. So this kind of innovation and cooperations can bring some ideas to the realities. This is my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. In order to deepen this, can you explain the ecosystem you built up at Tsinghua, the Joint Research Center for Advanced Robotics at Tsinghua University in Beijing? What is the best practice there? What can you share there?
You mean the JICA Center in Tsinghua University? I will share some. In Tsinghua University, we call this center JICA, which is the short of Joint Research Center for Advanced Robotics. JICA Center is founded on December 7th, about 2 years ago, 2017, at Tsinghua University, Beijing. JICA Center is an open innovation platform, promotes both Tsinghua and Siemens brand in advanced robotics controlling technology and solutions. In the past years, 2 and 3 years, JICA Center has organized some events for both academic and industrials, including conference, workshops, contests, lecturing, and visitings.
Thank you, Faye.
Hi, thank you.
Jens, the local champion, Werner-von-Siemens Center for Industry and Science, a quite young institution, but can you introduce us to the Werner-von-Siemens Center?
Yes, I'd love to, Hayri. Well, the Werner-von-Siemens Center is, it just recently celebrated its first birthday, so it was founded by many partners approximately a year ago, and it was founded exactly for the reasons we just heard. Speed up innovation, bridge the gap, address the right topics, and therefore we founded the Werner-von-Siemens Center, and all the partners, startups, industry, science, we're working in this ecosystem together. And let's take a look at how typically projects are being done. And for instance, for public funded projects or industrial projects, every company typically works at his or her own place and are doing research there. And then the results of the projects are being put together on a timely base or at the end of the project. But still, at the end of the project, there is a transfer phase. You need, also what Faye said, you need to transfer the results from the science institute to the industry. And that also costs a lot of money, and that also costs a lot of time. And so what's really beneficial for the Werner-von-Siemens Center is that it's providing a co-location where all these partners can work together. And I really like to compare this with a soccer team. Everyone who's sitting in this location is supposed to wear the same jersey. So if you go there, you cannot see, hey, this guy is working for this company, or this woman, she's working for another company. No, during the project, they are all working together with the same purpose, wearing the same jersey and scoring the same goals and achieving the milestones. So that's something new which is now going on. The first projects were started this summer, and so hopefully this is working out and we can really change the game here.
Thank you, Robert. You co-founded the Werner-von-Siemens Center as well. As a quite young startup, you already participated with a big corporate. What are your contributions as a startup to the ecosystem, and is there anything characteristic that you would like to add about the Werner-von-Siemens Center from your perspective?
Yes, absolutely. I would like to add a little bit to what you said, Jens. The unique proposition really of this Werner-von-Siemens Center is that it is not somewhere in the middle of the city, in some skyscraper, a co-location, but it is really very, very close in the middle in a factory area. So I don't like to call it co-location. I really like to call it like real lab or lab operations, lab ops, similar to DevOps. So we can do something, we can experiment, we can, as a startup, we can try to develop a new application, for instance, and test it directly in an operation of a factory. So it's not that we need to do long-lasting discussions and negotiations. We can just go down to the shop floor, try it, and see what happens. And that is really a unique selling proposition of this Werner-von-Siemens Center, which we love.
And Claudia, can you tell us from a science perspective, what does science bring to the table when it comes to the Werner-von-Siemens Center?
I guess taking up the spirit of my previous speakers, I think it's the enthusiasm and what we bring, of course, are idealistic brains, young talents, experts. We have been heavily investing in setting up all these projects together with our partners under the leadership of Siemens, and also several startups who surprisingly were engaged from very early on, where a lot of just paperwork has been done. What we are contributing, I guess, is the role of science, contributing open minds, ideas. When we go to the very end, like Fai said, of the innovation pipeline, feeding the pipeline with fresh ideas. But as BAM, we are also looking at the very applied side of science. So I think it's not a big bridge between basic science and getting together with our partners at the center. What we are providing in addition is infrastructure. So BAM is equipped very well with instruments that could feed into anything that the cooperation is about. So one of the first things is to feed in one of the big 3D printing machines. So I guess we're feeding in young talents and experts who have been working on the subjects of the core of Werner-von-Siemens Center programs for a very long time.
Thank you. Maybe when I was listening, can you give us a very brief introduction of Bundesanstalt für Materialforschung und Prüfung, which is BAM, because not everybody might know it.
No, that's true. We're not a university and not one of the usual research institutions. Faye or the audience may know. We have a special mission and working at the interface of policy making. So BAM is a federal research institute doing research, but also giving advice, and we're involved in standardization, all these things usual research institutions do not cover. And we're working for our Federal Ministry of Economics to give policy advice also on everything that goes into standardization and international cooperation. I hope this is enough to give you an idea that we are indeed a strange animal on the block, working very closely with industry, but we also have a portion of very basic science, looking for publication in Nature and Science as the end result, Faye.
Thank you. Just as an anecdote, when we were founding the Werner-von-Siemens Center, there was the Bundesregierung involved through BAM, because it's the Bundesregierung, then the Federal Ministry for Business, and then it's the BAM. So we are quite pleased by being supported by the Bundesregierung here. Faye, can you tell us how it is at Tsinghua University, how you support from the university side your innovation and your open ecosystem?
You mean the university is part of the innovation?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. The university is a very important part to support the innovations of each teachers and the students. And for example, they will cite some internal fundings to support the researchers and the teachers to do some research work. They cannot get the funding from the outside. They also set up some fundings and some platforms for students to connect with the professors and do some research at the beginning of their academic career. And also the university helps the professors to set up some connections with some industrial companies to find some real application scenarios and real requirements from the industrial, and the professors can do some research in the universities to find some solutions to the application scenarios. Also in China and in our university, in my university, and the officers in the university have some set up some how to say technology transferring policies to encourage the professors to transfer their patents and technology to real products. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Faye. As an in-between, we have a Q&A available, so there is still the old questions in it, but if you ask new ones, I'm sure we can replace them. So any questions we will collect here and answer them later. We have a portion of time reserved for that. But before we go to questions, I would like to go to a question for the audience again. So on slido.com, you go to hashtag ABS2020 stage 3 as before. And the question we have is, we heard about the setups and goals of specific ecosystems, innovation ecosystems. And we would like to know from you, for which reason would you join a cooperation and open innovation ecosystem? What would be of interest for you? What would be your main reason? And feel free to say anything you might say. I have to answer again. So I say fun, because it's short. but you might say something more useful. We would, while we are hearing from you, what are your motivations? We would like to hear from ourselves. What are the challenges and the learnings you had when setting up the ecosystem / when while operating the ecosystem? And as the one, at least with the two ecosystems we're introducing, with more experience in this, Faye, can you tell us what were the challenges and learnings for you at the JCAR?
JCAR, personally speaking, during the running of the JCAR Center, I'm glad to join JCAR and some this kind of cooperation with virtual resources, including some internal fundings and facilities, and which will be helpful for my research and some technology transferring. I also think this kind of ecosystem is very important to set up personalized communications, which also would be helpful to let more people know our work, and moreover, some influential platform would also be more helpful. I think this is the very important reason why I want to join some ecosystem and cooperations. Thank you.
And Jens, as a corporate, you might sometimes have a very internal perspective. How was it opening up in the ecosystem for you? What were your challenges? What did you learn?
Well, to establish such a strong ecosystem, of course, you go through a learning curve. And of course, you need to push away many big stones. And maybe to look at this, what is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is something where everyone contributes and gets a benefit out of it. And at the end, the overall result is even bigger than all these little small contributions. And so to make sure of this works out, so that everyone gets a benefit out of it. And you need to make sure that, and I will use a term here which Claudia said before, you need to work at the same eye level. That's really important, because if the balance is disturbed and some people are more contributing or others are getting more benefits out of it, then the balance is disturbed and it's like a card house which falls together. So you need to give the boundary conditions, the guardrails, to make sure that everyone is on the same eye level. And you can do that by providing, let's say, agreements, cooperation contracts, and so on. And I remember when we set up the first cooperation agreement, it was absolutely not at the same eye level, because everyone wanted to have all the IP themselves. Yeah, Claudia, I think you can agree to this.
Yes, I remember.
But the end, we corrected this.
Yeah.
We are now, everyone is at the same eye level, everyone is getting out benefits, and that's what makes the ecosystem so strong.
Claudia, you were laughing, and maybe some challenge you remember, or you can
yes,
recite.
I remember, because as I said, I have been involved in technology transfer for quite some time, working with different sorts of companies. And our first reaction also with our legal advisors was, of course, when we got the cooperation agreement and the whole setting, Siemens being in the pole position and steering the whole project, our gut reaction was a typical corporate company pulling everybody over the table. But as you can tell from our nice atmosphere, or even I hope it projects into the audience, it's all about people and the chemistry. And I think it's a wonderful example where, at least from our side, also with our partners from the Technical University and Fraunhofer who are involved, we have a wonderful atmosphere of really a feeling that we want to get things done together with all the different interests and framework conditions, but the chemistry and the people, and really thanks to the heads of this venture, for stimulating this kind of atmosphere is crucial to this endeavor.
So good teamwork spirit is a learning. and to be open when you fail maybe and do something that is not as intended. Robert, any other challenges you faced as a startup, being less than a year old upon co-founding the Werner-von-Siemens Center?
Well, I was lucky because I worked for a big corporate before I went to the startup, and I saw the biggest barriers was really to get not only on the same eye level, but to understand the other party's life reality. So for a startup to understand what a corporate life reality is with all this organizational structures is very difficult. On the other hand, it's very difficult for a scientific institution to understand what a startup has to deal with. And this was, for me, I think, the biggest push that we had when we talked a lot with each other. We made workshops where everybody talked about his life reality, so really to get on the same level, to understand why people behave and why things are like they are. And from that point on, we had the trust level that we really needed to make this ecosystem workable and vibrant.
Vibrant, very nice word. Yes, so talking about a vibrant ecosystem, in our third poll, we learned that networking is the most important in an open innovation ecosystem to you guys. From our answers, I'd argue teamwork, but nevertheless, we're here for networking, obviously, and I'm looking very forward to hearing more from you afterwards. And networking obviously is a benefit of such an innovation ecosystem. I'm not sure, I think in some mailing lists from Werner-von-Siemens Center I saw some 200 people who are now participating, and that might be very similar in the JCAR. But for you as a tech startup, Robert, if you may mind continue speaking, what's the main benefits for you being in the Werner-von-Siemens Center?
Yeah, as I tried to say before, the main benefit really is that we have direct access to the operations. So we're not only talking about co-creation, we're talking really about cooperation. And that means when we have ideas, often, that's true for many startups, they have great ideas, but they often lose the contact to the real user. And in the Werner-von-Siemens Center, it's just possible to go down the stairs into the shop floor and discuss with the machine operators or with the quality guys if the solutions that we have in mind are actually usable or not. And so we can, often enough, we have ideas that are totally nonsense, and then we can stop it right away and don't have to go another 3 months with a wrong idea. So that's really the biggest benefit for us.
And Claudia, going back to the virtual world, did you already see some benefits in research during the open innovation, maybe also from your previous experiences?
I think from a science perspective, it's getting the practice into very wonderful ideas. So if you have the pleasure with an open mind also to stretch your research into an applied area, like Faye said, that it's not a contradiction doing great science and looking into applications of what you're doing. I guess it's crucial to have an ecosystem that is open also for science and shares knowledge, because you have the applied side right where you are thinking, and you might have all the brilliant ideas. In the end, if you don't produce anything that is of use for a society, you've just wasted taxpayers' money, because science is mostly based on public funding. So that's one of the, I think, benefits. And if I talk to our researchers involved in the Werner-von-Siemens Center, I think they're all excited about the contact to new challenges from the industry side or the applied side, talking to the startups. And we've already seen projects evolve just by talking to each other, meeting via the center. So interdisciplinary new ideas, I think that's the wonderful thing and the exciting thing for the science part.
And from an industry perspective, Jens, do you see, you talked before about small parts being bigger than they were each individually. Do you see benefits for you as an industry player already showing in your current work?
Absolutely. Well, of course, it's not only what you bring into this ecosystem, it's also what you take out of the ecosystem. For example, what big companies, industries can bring into the ecosystem are the fields of application. It's, for example, mobile transformation, energy transformation, production technology. And all these future topics, in this ecosystem, they are further developed and solutions are created. And you can take these solutions and apply them. And for me, it's not only the content, it's the behavior, like Robert said before, is really important. You can learn from each other. Why are startups so fast? What can you do to improve that in your own company? And so you can take a look at the behavior, you can take a look at new ways of working, and you can apply that in an ecosystem, for example, to work in self-organized teams and so on. And you can take this spirit and these methods, if they work, apply them in your industry, and suddenly you might be as fast as a startup. Probably not, but, but maybe a little bit more accelerated.
Faye, you have the difficult challenge now to talk about both benefits, because you're the one representing JICA here. Do you see benefits for industry and for science in JICA? Where do you see them?
You mean the benefit from industry to JICA?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I think that because the JICA Center is well supported by Siemens company. And the Siemens has some application scenarios and requirements of products to tell the professors to do some kind of researches. They also can support the universities with some state-of-the-art equipment or devices such as Siemens PLCs, and to help the universities to train the students and to do some novel research. So I think this kind of collaboration and ecosystem is very helpful for both industry and academics. Thank you.
Thank you. Going further, we talked about corporate being more agile. How is it for such a traditional, not in a negative sense, but with a lot of tradition, an institution, a public institution like the Bundesanstalt für Materialforschung und Prüfung, the BAM? Is there anything that you bring to startups? Is there any program that you where you specifically see yourself working with startups?
Thanks for the diplomatic introduction. Yeah, actually, we're celebrating 150 years next year, so your introduction is right. But looking towards the future, BAM, surprisingly, for an institution like a federal research institution under the umbrella of a ministry, we have a special program to breed startups out of BAM. So it's called Slingshot. And it has actually been quite successful for an institution like ours. So we have, I think, over the years, roughly 15 startups created. And we are in parts cooperating with universities in Berlin, sometimes also somewhere else in Germany, using a program called Exist that exists in Germany and that helps to initiate startups, high-tech startups out of university research settings. And this has been quite successful. And we have a whole infrastructure to support these startup activities out of BAM. So legal support, of course, we have excellent infrastructure. We have mentors, brains that go along. And there's one startup in the pipeline, and we're planning, looking into the future, it looks like it would be the best move to move this startup into the Werner-von-Siemens campus as a new kid on the block.
So Robert won't be the youngest anymore.
I don't know about the age group, but well, look, if you look
as a
at
company,
life
as a company. I know that you have also worked in Asia with startups. And Claudia, maybe to begin, do you see any differences between in spin-offs between Asia and Germany? I mean, Asia being a bit broad. Mm-hmm.
It's very broad. Yeah, if you talk about China, I think Fei will shake his head, because looking at China, you have to talk about all the different cultures of institutions, the framework conditions, and the state of, the economic situation. I think if we talk about China, it's just breathtaking, the speed of Fei, of the speed China is developing. I've been in China last year for the last time. I'm sure if I'm allowed to travel again, it will be on a different level. So working with startups, we have cooperations for our startups using an exist network via a university. But of course, our major experience is dealing in science cooperations on an institutional, sometimes bilateral level. That's more science-driven than working with startups in Asia. And what we see, I think, talking about China, the difference, I think it's coming back to my first point, is the major difference is the psychology or the mindset of German students or academics thinking about starting a company. We are still a very safe-oriented, risk-averse society. And lots of public funding have been invested in programs like Exist, training academics to think about startups as a career path. When I look at China, or at least it's my impression, or India, it's in the genes of the people to be entrepreneurs and to make money instead of looking for a safe position somewhere, even in a big corporate like Siemens. For it has been, I think, a different career route for a long time. But maybe Robert will contradict.
But I would like to ask Fei first. Where do you see differences? Where do you see learnings that the two regions can take from each other? And let's narrow down Asia to China for the sake.
Claudia, next time I will invite you to visit Beijing, so you will see more difference, so more improvement
yes,
of China. Yes, startups. Yeah, we also still need to learn more from Germany and other EU countries, Europe countries. Really, there are more and more spin-offs in Asia, especially in China these days. I also have a startup in Beijing, focused on ultra-low power perception chips for wearables, IoTs, and robotics. And my CEO is from KIT University. From Germany, and the government of China and some local office have released some policies to support spin-offs out of campus, including talents, fundings, and taxes. Patents are also very important to Asia's spin-offs, especially with novel technologies. The government will support the universities and professors and some guys in the industries to file more patents, to file more patents to protect their chance to earn money and their technologies. Also, for the JICA Center side, the JICA Center also has some internal policies such as talent supporting and funding, and some research money and some connection with the industries to support the spin-offs of the technology. Thank you.
And further on, Fei, do you have any plans for the near future? Anything you want to tackle in the next couple of years at JCAR?
Yeah, JICA Center also has some internal policies to support it. We have closely relationships with the professors, industrial enterprises, for example, from Siemens, campus officers and government officers, we have established a mechanism to share the resources of different parts, and we could like to enhance it in the near future. Thank you.
And Jens, being 1 year old now, what do you plan on doing growing up?
Well, actually, we are not only growing up, we are also growing bigger, Hayri. We are, of course, looking, or we are addressing future topics like production technology, like mobile transformation, energy transformation, and so on. And of course, in our ecosystems, we still have black spots. And we are looking for partners also who fill out these black spots and would also like to participate in that. And besides that, I think, Robert, you have mentioned the headquarters is in Siemensstadt. And also, we're going to upgrade this. Right now, there's a co-location. This will be built up and getting bigger. And also, as you mentioned, Robert, the manufacturing area and production area where you can, where you can build up prototypes and test prototypes. This area will be increased and also will get bigger. And actually, also, probably it's not the speed as in China, yeah, but also we are going forward here with big plans, and I'm glad to accompany this every day. So it's a lot of fun.
And Robert, so there is new projects going on, new cooperation on the way. So do you see further development in the ecosystem? What do you see going forward, looking forward?
Yeah, I see a lot of projects, as Jens has said, but I also see some potential in becoming an even more vibrant ecosystem, an ecosystem which is really incorporating all different perspectives. And this is something what we really need, I think, is even more diversity, more people from different backgrounds, more people from different life realities. We have to be honest, currently we are a typical production-oriented German engineering kind of setup and science setup. And I believe if we get more people from all different kind of backgrounds, this will be very helpful for even becoming a more impactful ecosystem than we are today.
I think we are closing towards the end, so I will give the last word to Claudia for further development and new perspectives. Do you have anything to add to your two colleagues?
No, I would fully agree to what my previous speaker said. We're looking forward also to this interdisciplinary or even transdisciplinary network that is growing in Berlin. And I wish good luck to Jens and his team, because it will depend on them how to send incentives for everyone to contribute and to be present. But we are ready and enthusiastic to be part of it.
Thank you. To close, while we do the Q&A, I also have an audience question again. So we've learned a lot, obviously, about open innovation ecosystems, but would you be interested in joining an ecosystem such as Werner-von-Siemens Center or JCAR? And now we have the first Q&A, the first question, and I hope we get an answer. So the first question virtually is, how do you control innovation around the world? I'm not 100% sure if we can answer that, but maybe Jens, you have an idea.
Well, the question is, what is the same innovation?
Yeah.
Of course, innovation is done everywhere in the world, and as I said, speed is very important to develop innovations. And of course, if you are fast, and if you're fast and maybe an ecosystem is the next step to accelerate innovations, then you're absolutely ahead. And then, of course, as Faye already said, it's important also to save this intellectual property.
Do we have any questions? I think, do you have any questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Thank you very much. It was a great panel. I have a question that I think is maybe kindergarten level, But so like research come from scientific research, right? From the scientists and researchers. You guys are academic, and you do this research, and then you do publication, and then they come startups are the entrepreneurs who are the money guy, the sales guy, the marketing guys who are bringing this idea into life and making money out of it, actually creating something that is realistic enough for us all to use. How is the connection? Where is the connection? How are these two people fight each other and help each other? Because like from how I see as a scientist person to go into the money and sale marketing route is a bit harsh and difficult. I'm not sure. Thank you.
I think I would give this question to Claudia.
Yeah, so my question would be, if you do your research in Germany and you're a scientist or a student, or let's say a scientist at a university, we have this great program that I mentioned. It's called Exist, and you would find support from people like my team or the administration, the service administration. And the idea of this Exist program is that you as a scientist are teamed up with a student from the Department of Economics, and you get a mentor who is experienced in raising a startup. Maybe Robert would be your mentor. So if you're a scientist in one of our universities or research institutions, this teaming takes place at a very early stage.
If I may add to that, I often get to know scientists that are really not so much interested in the money part. They're rather interested in the impact part. And I think that is where startups, where the money people, where the VCs and where the scientists meet, is like really creating some impact to really do something. And the beauty of this kind of an ecosystem is that you can build some groups, you can build some circle of impact, and so everybody gets out what he needs. So people can maybe monetize the results, and other can see that their results are actually making impact, improving the society or whatever. So that is what the ecosystem really is about, just building a joint circle with different motives but one impact. So that is how we try to do it, at least.
Also, maybe to add on this, the motivation for everyone is totally different in an ecosystem. For science, for example, it's more about publications and so on. But in an ecosystem, I give you an example. There are also, for example, if we talk about Industry 4.0, there are companies who are developing Industry 4.0, and there are other companies which are applying Industry 4.0. So they both have a totally different scope, but they are absolutely contributing from each other.
Any more questions from the audience? Yes.
Thank you. It's amazing panel. Thank you very much. And I have a question. Since this is AsiaBerlin Summit, I have a question to you, Jens. So, are the startups, for example, from Asia considered to be part of your ecosystem?
Well, that's absolutely a really good question. So I would say it depends. Right now, it's we are working in a more Berlin, like in a Berlin setup, but that's mainly because also this ecosystem is public funded, and I like to say thanks here to the state of Berlin for funding us, but also as this is growing bigger. Of course, we are talking about making this larger and spreading also within Germany. And I would say it depends. If there are ways how we can make a benefit from each other, then it's, the answer is absolutely yes.
And in case someone from an Asian startup would like to settle in Berlin, with a dependance while they're growing, they would be welcome as well, I assume?
Absolutely.
Any more questions from the audience? I have to look in the poll as well. Meanwhile, any questions? Thank you very much. To close things up, we had a full success because as a marketing stunt, we convinced 100% of the audience to be interested in joining an ecosystem. Thank you very much for that. It was a pleasure.
There was not only one guy, Hayri.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how there is no number. Thank you very much for the participation. Thank you, Faye. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Jens.
Thank you for moderating.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.